All right, so I'm recording, everybody. This is section 6.6 in the Green Book, and that is factor by grouping. Now, I'm going to skip 6.5 because I personally feel like the kids have the hardest time with it, so I do that last. All right. So, when I have a binomial, what's the GCF? Yep, McKenna? Is x, and so if you factor it, what would it be?
The x times the quantity of a plus 3.
Right, and when I factor out that x, that's called the greatest monomial factor. It's one term that I'm factoring out. But when I have something like this, that's the greatest monomial factor, right? When I have something like this, what's the greatest common factor? What do both terms have in common? Let's go, Molly.
The quantity of y plus 5.
That's correct. So I'm going to factor out that y plus 5 out of both of them. And then what would be left? Yes, Alan?
A plus b.
And I put that in the other binomial. Put them together and I make their own binomial. Because they're both being multiplied by y plus 5. You get that? That's the greatest binomial factor. Binomial factor. You with me? Okay. Now, when I have more than 3 terms, which we're really going to just work on 4 terms, okay, I want you to group them. And so here's one group, and here's another. You with me? You should be writing this. Okay, what does the first group have in common? What does the first group have in common? What's the common fact, the greatest common factor? Daniel?
M.
M. In the first group?
Sorry, A.
A. I'm going to take out an A, and what would be left?
M plus 4.
M plus 4. And in the second group, what do they have in common? What do they have in common? Let's go with Jordan.
3.
A positive 3. And what would be left would again be an M plus 4. So now, what can I factor out of both terms? Jordan?
M plus 4.
The quantity of M plus 4, or the binomial M plus 4, that's correct. And what would be left, Jordan?
A plus 3.
The quantity of A plus 3 goes into the other binomial. We getting it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Can I erase?
Yes.
All right, so what would I factor out of number 1? Kendall?
The quantity of y plus 3.
The quantity of y plus 3. And what would be left that goes into the other binomial? If I factor out the y plus 3
X.
plus, perfect. Okay, you guys do number 2. Go. Pause the recording. Just do number 2. Do 2 and 3. Daniela, can you tell me what would I factor out first?
X plus 2.
The quantity, okay, x plus 2. And what would be left?
X squared plus 3.
Good, x squared plus 3. You get it? Next one, Sophia.
You would take t times the quantity minus 4.
And what would be left?
You would do 5 minus 6.
Good. Now, what am I going to group together? Next one, Vardon. Make the group.
P minus 3.
Before that, AP minus 3A. BP, oops, I really should pull that inside. I don't know what I do. Yeah, BP minus, I do it there. BP minus 3P, 3B. So in the first group, what can I factor out?
A.
Just an A. And what would be left?
P minus 3.
P minus 3. Okay, in the second group, Vardon, what can I factor out?
P.
What kind of B?
Negative.
No,
Oh, no, sorry, positive.
positive B. And what would be left?
P minus 3.
P minus 3. So what would my final answer be?
You can factor out P minus 3 and you get P
times the quantity of A plus B. Okay, you guys pause the recording and do number 5. Evans, what group am I making?
We're making the group with A and B, A times B minus A,
Good, and
C minus C,
good. And then what would be my first group that I would factor out?
A times the quantity of C minus 1,
Good. And the next one?
C times the quantity of B minus 1.
Plus C times B minus 1. And my final answer?
It would be B minus 1 times the quantity of A plus C.
And if you wrote A plus C first, that would be okay. You know, order doesn't matter if they're like 2 times 3 or 3 times 2. Okay, so now, sometimes when we're factoring, what would I do with the first group? Right? We're going to take out what? And what's left?
3 plus A.
3 plus A. Okay, and then what am I going to take out here? We can't take anything out. So what we can try to do is we can try and rearrange the order of the terms, right? We reorder the terms. I'm going to move the x squared with the 3x. Now, let's see if we have, so sometimes you can mess with the order. Okay, and I'm taking out an x, and what would be left? X plus 3. And when I factor out here, what's going to be left? What am I factoring out? An A. And what am I left with? X plus 3. And so it becomes x plus A times x plus 3. You with me? I hope you're writing this. Questions? Yes.
Isn't your finalized answer x plus A plus x plus 3?
No, times. It's times. Every time it's been times. Because that plus A goes in here. Because it's 2 quantities times each other, okay? All right. Now, do number 1 quickly. Go. Okay, McKenna, walk me through it.
So you would, the comment there.
What group, how would you reorder it?
So I would reorder it
Keep going.
2x plus nx plus 6 plus 3n. And then I would factor the first one as x times 2 plus n. And then plus 3 times 2 plus n, and then I would group together as 2 plus n times the quantity of 3 plus x.
Times the quantity of x plus 3. Perfect. Okay, yes.
I did it another way, so I grouped 3n and 2 plus x.
Let's see if that's what they did here. Okay. Hold on. That's okay. Because you're just getting, you should get the same answer.
Yeah.
So what did you do? 3n and n plus x?
Yeah.
Okay, and you got n times x plus 3?
Yeah.
And then you got 2 times. So the difference
I got the
is,
same answer.
right. So there's more than one way. You guys with me?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Let's go to opposites. Okay, what's the opposite of x? Opposite of 8. Good. Opposite of x plus 3.
Negative x minus 3.
Or negative times the whole thing, or negative x minus 3. Right. Next one.
Negative b minus a plus b.
Or can't we call it b minus a?
Yeah, but that would be switching.
It doesn't matter if you switch the places. All I'm doing is if I'm making the negative a plus b in the binomial, I can switch within the binomial to b minus a. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get used to trying to do that. What would the opposite be? Good. What would the opposite, please? Okay, what's the opposite? Oh, okay, now, this time we're going to rewrite it as a product of Negative 1 times what equals negative x? Good. Negative 1 times what?
Negative b.
Good. It says as a factor, as a product of negative 1 and its opposite. Okay. Negative 1 and what's its opposite?
The quantity of a.
5. Sorry. Okay. You get the idea? Next one. Negative 1 times what? Okay. Negative 1 times what?
Negative 2n plus 3.
Or 3 minus 2n. Negative 1 times 4 minus x. You with me? What would the next one be? Negative 1 times what?
7 minus.
Do you see how it flips it around? Negative 1 times what? And negative 1 times what?
5 squared minus 6.
Okay. Okay, so in this case, as I start factoring, right, I've grouped this group. Now notice, when I group this, I get plus 9 minus, if I factor out a 2, plus 2, what are we left with? 9 minus b. Aren't they opposites? But I want them to match, so I have a common binomial factor. Are you with me? So what can I factor out instead of a positive 2?
A negative 2.
If I factor out a negative 2, what's it going to do to the binomial? It's going to flip it around and make it, oops, sorry, trying to do this. It's going to flip it, it's going to make it b minus 9 times the negative 2, and then it becomes what? B minus 9 times what? X minus 2. Try the next one. Go. Pause the recording. Factoring out the negative. Okay. Okay, so let's check it. Kendall, I'm going to group it, and what am I going to factor out of the first group?
The k.
I'm going to take a k, and what will be left?
X squared minus 5.
Good. And what am I factoring out of the next one?
Negative, 3.
Positive 3 or negative 3?
Negative. Oh, no, positive.
If I do a positive 3, I'm going to be left with 5 minus x squared. Are they matching?
No.
Kendall, so I don't want to do a positive 3. I want them to flip around.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
Negative 3.
A negative 3, and when I take 15 divided by negative 3, what do we get?
Negative 5.
Good, and negative 3x squared divided by negative 3 is just an x squared, and there we go. So I end up with what?
Negative, k minus 3
Times the quantity?
of x squared minus 5.
Perfect. Yes. Oh, yeah, did we? Yes, we did. I thought we did, and I erased it. I just erased it. Okay? So, questions? Yeah, I don't think you need to do this line right here. If you don't find matching and you can do it in your head, you can go right to here. But if you see they're opposite, you can do the 2 lines. All right, so now let's look at some. Do you feel like you've had enough with the negatives? We can move terms around. We can divide out negatives. That's going to become a problem. That's what we need practice with. Okay, now let's look at some exceptions. Factor completely. What are we doing? What am I doing? Step 1, let's go with, how about Chris? Group what?
We're grouping 2px plus 8p.
And,
The quantity of x, 6x plus 24.
okay, what can I pull out of the first group?
2p.
Oh, wait, what did I do wrong? What's the first step? GCF. I shouldn't be grouping until after I GCF everything. I forgot. Gee, just like a kid, right? Everybody forgot that. Okay, wait, sorry, I'm doing that again. So I'm left with px plus what? P, 4p plus 3x plus 12. Okay, now what am I factoring out next? I'm going to group, how about if I group these and group these? Keep going. P. What do I do next, Chris?
P times quantity of x plus 4.
Okay, so now I'm going to kind of make this, I can't forget about my GCF, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of do this, and I've got that, you said take out a P, and what am I left with?
X plus 4.
X plus 4, and then
U plus 3 times x plus 4.
plus 3 times x plus 4. Okay, now inside of here, what's it going to be? Let's finish this.
Inside we have
X plus 4 times the quantity,
P plus 3.
P plus 3, and we can't forget about our old GCF. Okay, hold on. Okay, do you understand how to put that all together? Okay, I'm going to pause it. Here's what I need you to do. I'm going to pause it, and I would like for you at 16:37, actually 16:45. Okay, so the question was, do I need the final, the brackets? Do I need them? You don't need it. Once you put P plus 3 into their own parentheses, we can just bring down our GCF. Okay, so I'll show you by PowerPoint. It might be a little cleaner. Okay, and here we are. And just make sure and put it into. All right, so now I begin. Let's try one more. Pause the recording and see if you can do this one. Okay, now check your work. Right away, I can group my first group as x squared y, and I can pull out a y squared. And if I pull out a y squared, I'll be left with x squared minus 1. And then I can pull out how about if I pull out a negative 9? Because I want to flip that around so my x squared is first. Negative 9. So positive 9 divided by negative 9 is going to be a negative 1. And I'm going to put it over here. And negative 9x squared, I'd be left with the x squared. Now, oh my goodness, I love this problem. I love this problem. Come on in. I love this problem because, and I'm going to put it on your test. So if you've watched this, you'll know that I'm going to put this on your test. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to factor out that negative 9. That doesn't work, so I'm going to figure out the negative 9. I don't even think you need to do that second one. You can just jump right here, and we get y squared minus 9 times the quantity of x squared minus 1. Now, we are left with a difference of squares. So the first difference of squares breaks up to x plus 1, x minus 1, and the second one breaks down to y plus 3, y minus 3. Now, can we write this any other way? Absolutely not. All right, so that is factor by grouping. Whoops, I'll go back to it. Factor by grouping, and please make sure you know how to do these exceptions.